Everyone, this video is on how to use the best proofreader I've ever used personally, and the one I recommend for everyone, all of my students, and the one I use every day in my work and my personal life. I'm not affiliated, as you know, and I don't stick to a software if it stops working. I just always try to recommend the tools that work the best and the ones that make your life so much easier, which this is definitely one of them. This is on tutorials on Android tablet, as always, because it's just easier for me. This app is not available on desktop as far as I know, and I do believe it's available in the Apple Store as well for iPhone and iPad users. Okay, so this app's called Voice Aloud Reader. So we just go straight to the Play Store, and you would type in the @ sign, and that's what you Voice Aloud Reader looks like that. And you also want the voice floating button as well, because that adds some extra functionality. So those are the two things that you want. Okay, once you've installed those, get rid of this a sec, you go straight into the app interface. Yours won't necessarily look like this at all because I've set mine up with my own color scheme. We'll go straight into that setting. Why not? So you can change the text color here to be anything you want and go back to the original with old color. Page color, my eyes get really tired. I mean, tired all over after a while with just black and white text. So I like to have a different colored background. You can use the HSV, which is this bar here, to change the background. You could also use the RGB slider, which is very easy to change your backgrounds there. And hex, this code you're looking at here, what I've just highlighted, that is the digital code for a color. In this particular case, this shade of yellow that I'm using. If you, for instance, typed in HEX, hex, and the word red into Google, you would get either be taken to a website or shown a display of the many different codes for the many different shades of red and see what they are. You can copy and paste them in and get all kinds of unique colors. And also, I do recommend, if you find a color that you love, just put it into a simple Google Doc and save it so that you can use that color again in different places and just remember it, because once you find a color you like, it's just good to know what it was. You can change the color that it highlights the text when it's reading to anything you want. This purple here is just a choice that I chose out of the available options there. You can use the dark control themes and still have all of your things as well.
This is some text.
Ooh.
This is some text. This is some text.
Okay, let's just stop her doing that a minute. But anyway, so those are your choices for how you can alter the color scheme. Now, in your main settings here, you want your speech settings, and you want to have speak text copied to clipboard checked. You don't want necessarily any of the others, and you certainly don't want start talking at once, because she'll just start talking as soon as you open the app, which may not be appropriate. This is the settings I recommend for pauses, which I think is actually the default. Headset, you can always pause these and match yours up. And audio. I like to let music play in the background, so that means that if I'm using I think I use Rocket Player as my music app, because that's just my favorite one. And that means that I can listen to, say, an ebook that I've ported into this system and have music playing as well. And that's just awesome if you're asking me. So I do that. It's saying may not pause on a phone call because this tablet is also a phone. And if you were doing it on a tablet that didn't have calls, it wouldn't really say that. But if you're doing it on a phone, it would. Okay, I've never had to change. So this is if you have, for instance, the odd word of, say, Spanish, French, something, into a predominantly English text. And instead of it skipping that word, if it can recognize it, it will read it. So that's a handy feature. Next, we have change voice or language. This is very important. Use only the system to default voice is your best choice, for the simple reason that the voices that come with this app are very robotic. they will read to you like this in a flat monotone. It's not that great. And while you can get third-party voices such as Will and Sharon, which are my recommendations, they're the American voices from the Acapella Voices app. It's called Acapella Voices, that you'd get out of the Play Store. You'd install it, and then it's about 59 pence each for those two, for the voices each. But what you'd have to do then is that you'd go into the TTS and you would, not that way, sorry, you would use their voice manager, and you would...
This is an example of speech synthesis in English. Do you like it?
This is the voice that I have, but you could they'd have other voices that would be available. They'd be a long list of different languages and a whole bunch of different voices. Like, for instance, see, this is United States, and...
This is an example of speech synthesis in English. Do you like it?
No, madam, I do not. So I will go back. That's the personal one.
This is an example of speech synthesis in English. Do you like it?
Yes, I do. But mostly, even so, the best thing to do, because this particular voice, Yvonne, I don't think is available anymore. But I got this, this is an APK from a long time back. So the system voice, only the system default voice is your best option, because it will use a high quality voice that actually came with your device, that should be of a good standard and should read with some good inflection. And so that basically teaches you how to change it if your system default voice isn't good, to use in an external app, which is again Acapella Voices, and the two voices that are of the best quality inflection wise, Will and Sharon of the American Voices, and also how to use your system settings. So that's because this is a voice reading app, so how to deal with the voices is very important. So that's all that information. Yes, please. Thank you. So back to settings. So we are now at the share icons, text and reading. I like to have the main icon up here, which I will show you because it's how I can access the menu, which I'll show you how to use in a moment. Add to list I like to have, because that means if I'm importing something from somewhere else or from my Google Drive or something, I can add it to the list. So if I go to a document that's in my Google Drive, I can either copy and paste the text, or I can add it to a list where it will read the entire document. So that's what that option's for. I haven't used any of the registered ones. Just ignore those other ones. They're not important. Follow the HTML extractor is if you are copying in HTML text, which I will show you how to use in a moment. And it's actually quite important, but you don't need these two particular settings. And show images in web articles and show links in web articles you do need, and that's important. Edit voice folder location will just show you this document from something I was reading online. Ebooks, parent directory, that's just where your stuff is. And you can tell it where to look for your things, where to open them up on your own device. Edit speech, I wouldn't mess with at all unless you absolutely have to, which I did here. So you can see that I have one, which is question mark. That was because at one stage, I think this was in a previous update though, it was reading question mark, the symbol as the word. So it was like, are we going out, question mark? And you'd be like, what on earth is it doing? So I typed in question mark and told it to replace it with blank space, nothing. So it stopped doing it. And that was fine, but I think they corrected that in a later update. But if you find it's doing it, you can just press the pencil button there to edit, to add something new. And you can do what I've done there and it will work. And then you'd press save and it will be fine. Other than that, I really wouldn't mess with that setting because it's more of an advanced thing. So I'd leave that alone. We don't need to clear any open by defaults that I've told it to, because this is my default reader, so I have it set up to read certain things. I don't need to clear any passwords. I don't think I have any for this app. PDF text import settings. This is the default, restore default. So I would just use the default settings there because that's worked fine for me. Extra buttons to show in the top. I have all the buttons showing in the toolbar because I like to. And I don't have a reset Bookshare org thing to change. Okay, so here are some, we should get some text in now so we can start to look at the text-based options. Let's get rid of that a second. So this is some text, as you saw. If I just tell her to copy, if I just copy that from, this is a different app. Right now I'm in Google. This is a Google Doc that's in my Google Drive. So if I copy this,
This is some text.
she will read it. Now, if I use the button, which I can access from here, pulling down my menu, if I press the floating button, I can use that. I can move that anywhere I want, and I can use that anywhere I want. So I can now go to Chrome, for example, copy some text out of Chrome, if that wasn't just happening. This is from an article in today's Guardian, so I can just copy that, have her read it.
Researchers found the top-rated items were dominated by brands with names such as Shiny.
Pause it from here.
Researchers
from
found
here.
that. Researchers found that. Researchers found.
Go forward and back. If that's because I didn't really copy enough text, but it will go. If I had some more paragraphs, which I'll just get up now.
Researchers found the top-rated
Whoops, always remember to copy.
reviews. Its researchers. Many items also boast.
So you see it will go forward and back in your paragraphs. You can see the progress of how much text you've read and where you are. Now, if I want the floating button to go away, I can do that easily by just turning it off here. Another interesting thing is, say this piece of information here is something I want to copy and paste, but I don't want her to read it to me again. She already did. All I need to do is press here, tell it not to copy, to read it right now, copy it, and I will have the text copied into my clipboard, but it won't read it until I toggle the setting to read it back on, which is very, very good. Now, if we go back into the app, we can see some options to change the pitch, how fast or slow she's reading. I have her reading pretty fast because I read pretty fast. And I can also change the pitch. I really wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Standard is best. And I can change the volume, which is up quite high for the purposes of recording this at the moment. Okay. Another excellent thing that I can do is change text. I can edit as I go along. So this text is from the article that we just saw, but I can actually change it. If by pressing edit text, I can now just type in something else. Ooh, there we go.
The people found that top-rated items were dominated.
So I can change, I can edit. I have a text editing options here, which is just phenomenal if you're asking me. All the usual things, select all. I can search. So let's see what a word is here. I can search for, say, the word. That's when I had some Sherlock text in there. Brands, which is in the article. Press go and that will show up. So that's excellent. I can open up from anywhere, which we've seen before. I can encode, wouldn't mess with the encoding. We've already seen how you do all the color options. I can add a bookmark if I want to. I can save the article. So that means if I'd imported an entire article, I can save, and that I didn't already have saved to my drive or my device, I could save it. It also, the save option is also here, that I can save what I'm working on to my device, which is excellent as a text file. I can also record a sound file. I can access the tutorial, a different kind, help, and so on. And I can access my clipboard to see what I copied last. So these options up here are, it's a very robust tool, as you can see, that has a lot of options and a lot of things that you can do. Some other things to run you through that's important. Reading PDFs out of your drive. So if you just, this is a PDF of The Sign of Four by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle that I downloaded from the society that makes these available for free, classic literature. And if I copy and paste that, this is something I'm working on with my students who can copy and paste and read entire pages of the work.
Sherlock Holmes took his bottle from the corner of the mantelpiece and his hypodermic syringe from its neat Morocco case. With his long, white, nervous fingers he adjusted the delicate needle, and rolled back his left shirt cuff. For some little time his eyes rested thoughtfully upon the sinewy forearm and wrist all dotted and scarred with innumerable puncture marks.
Now that's a quick there. Sometimes when you first put up the floating button, it doesn't work until you've used the main menu buttons, and then
Finally, he thrust the sharp point home, pressed down the tiny piston, and sank back.
then you can just use it as normal. You can copy, sometimes select all won't work here the way you'd like it to. It will only do a page at a time. But I have never had a student complain that the proofreader was basically making an ebook out of something that they'd have to sit normally and read themselves for a very long time. And there are also ways to get it as fluid as a straight thing of text. So it can actually select and read the entire book to you while you're out and about, while you're taking a walk or something, while you're sitting in a cafe, and you can listen to the entire book. So because this is actually preview mode inside Drive, the options to copy can be a bit limited. Whereas if you, for instance, had the ebook, you could just select all and copy the entire text and it would read it to you, and so on. So you figure out which options work best for getting the whole text read at once. And for study purposes though, when you're asked to study sections and pieces at a time, being able to do a page at a time is absolutely fine. So that's how you can get through in entire books. Sometimes it's good to have Adobe Reader, the app, installed, because that works with PDFs. That's the most Adobe invented PDF, so they're the last word on PDF. And if you opened it in the Adobe app and then press select all, you would be able to get the entire text because it wouldn't be in preview mode, and you would be able to listen to this entire book while you are out and about. And that's just an excellent way to get your assigned reading done, to take it in and absorb it and really listen to it, rather than just what my sister calls strapping on the feed bag, which is when you sit and just suffer, just read the thing you don't care about, rather than trying to combine it with perhaps getting some fresh air. You don't have to suffer. You could just go out and listen to it. Okay, so here's another piece of excellent functionality that this has that I'm in love with. It can actually read HTML. So if I copy this in,
you can also use HTML, which is really cool. And it works.
see? Now, as you can see there, if we do picture in picture, which let me just get out.
You can also use HTML, which is really cool. And it works. You can also use HTML.
Okay, so as you can see, this is code here. This picture is in code, but it read it as the actual picture. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I'd say. So I'll give you another flash of my excellent screensaver of Wonder Woman. So what we want to do there is a thing that I like to do sometimes is when I'm writing things, sometimes I haven't written them in HTML, but they're on my WordPress or something like that. So the text is in HTML format at that point, because it only takes regular text in plain text, if you understand what I mean by that. So what I mean is, where I say here, this is some text, if I now put bold in and italics and then copy it in,
this is some text.
you see that the formatting isn't there. Whereas if I, as quickly as I can, put in italics here, it's loading, hang on.
You can also use HTML, which is really cool. And it works.
So as you can see, the word can is shown in HTML. So that's why sometimes if you've taken out a piece of text to edit in HTML, you would leave it in HTML and you would work with it in your Google Doc in HTML. And it's good to see it, to read it as it will actually look to the reader. And that's why you'd have like a split screen, picture in picture like you see here, and be using both. That is just some top-notch functionality that I have not been able to find in other proofreaders, and especially the edit text feature, which sometimes lets me keep my original HTML down here and just test out, say I wanted to change this here and just see how it sounds. So what I would do is I'd go to my edit text. As you can see, it's read it as HTML, which is really And I'd put in, for instance, very cool and see.
You can also use HTML, which is really very cool.
And then I'd say, okay, that doesn't sound good at all. And I take it out, but I haven't messed with it here. It's still the same, so I can copy it back in. So it's just these different layers of functionality that will mean different things to different people. But this is a very robust tutorial, if you will, showing you all the excellent things you can do and all the excellent options that that it has. I do recommend installing the Adobe PDF app so that you can have the full functionality. One of the excellent things I love, though, even just in the Drive viewer, is that I'm able to, let me pull this up here. I'm able to add comments here. If you ever find that you're having trouble with the PDF reader selecting, which happens sometimes, you could hold it down and this bar at the top just won't come up. Just exit it and come back, and that usually 9 times out of 10 that'll fix the problem. And again, the app is another good way. You can add a comment. I can put my comment in. You don't need access to that. Come on. So if I add a comment, I can add my comments, but I can also read my comments.
Add something.
And I can read someone else's comments that are there. So I've got all the functionality to annotate, to read other people's comments, to work in collaboration. Excellent functionality. So this is in the Drive app that I'm using this, and the Adobe app will also let you comment. The only reason I don't have the Adobe app is installed is I don't necessarily like to switch between too many different apps. It's usually enough as it is. So because I'm able to use all of this functionality here, I can read the PDF, I can copy the text and have it read to me, I can annotate, I can add comments and read other people's comments. That's pretty much all I need. So that's why I don't have a separate app for that. I don't actually need it. One of the things that I highly recommend the proofreader for as well is when you're writing emails and things like that. It's just perfect to avoid embarrassing mistakes. As you know, I'm a huge fan of the Grammarly, which I use in the desktop view on my tablet. There's not an app for that necessarily. There's a keyboard, but I have not found that was very good. So I just use it in Chrome so as you know, if you go to Chrome, you have the option, you press these side menus, and in Chrome it will say different things. And one of the options in Chrome would be desktop site, and you'd click that. And you'd be able to use Grammarly just fine to paste it in. The Google Docs, which we're looking at right now, has an excellent spell checker, which you can access with the spell check there. But there's nothing wrong with spelling here. And with these simple tools like picture in picture, for instance, you could do half and half and have your email at the top. You'd write your text at the bottom here, paste it into your email using your floating button. You just copy and paste the text. You'd listen to it. So that would mean you could write the email, edit the email, listen to the email, do it all one quite seamless action very, very quickly. And the Voice Aloud Reader is just an absolute excellent piece of kit for supporting you with all the work that you have to do, all of the reading that you have to do, all of the writing and editing. So I recommend it for that. And I also would say, buy the developers a lunch. It's not much that they're asking for to get rid of the ads, and it's not recurring, it's not a subscription. So I think it's absolutely fine. I absolutely don't mind paying a reasonable amount, which, like I said, was very low. It's like £10 or something for a super excellent app. So that is everything for how to use the Voice Aloud app. Good luck using it. Well, not good luck. It's very easy to use, but I'm sure that functionality will make it a lot easier if you have a lot of reading to do for work or for exams or things like that. Okay. All right, everyone. Until next time. Bye-bye.